In this Kotlin on Android development tutorial, we're going to show you how you can share a URI pointing to a video file between two Android fragments. Welcome to Mobile Application Tutorials. My name's Nigel. In the previous episode, we successfully managed to save a video to a file. Now, we're going to want to be able to play that video back in a player such as ExoPlayer. We want to do that in another fragment. So what we want to do is share the URI from the captured video and pass that across to a new fragment which will have a video player such as ExoPlayer. And to do that, we're going to use Android's new view model of sharing data between fragments. Basically, it makes things a lot more easier than using the old system of fragment interfaces and fragment arguments. So we have the documentation for this tutorial as well. It's free if you just sign up for the free YouTube membership. There will be links in the description. And so currently this is number 5 in this video camera2 API video series, and so we're going to be setting up the sharing URI with a model. And so you can follow all these episodes starting from number 1 down to number 5, which is recommended, but the code is provided in Git as well. And for members who do sign up, who buy this product for the price of $10 US, they'll get the remaining episodes plus premium tutorials as well. And the premium members also get a video describing how you can get the code from Git and install it in your project and get the code up and running prior to starting this tutorial. Okay, so we will make a start. I will scroll on down here, and so the first thing we want to do is to install the ViewModel library, and I have provided the details of where the library is, and we will now jump across to Android Studio. And so we do need to go into our build.grader file there, and just at the bottom of the dependencies I'm just going to paste that in. And then we will need to resync to pull down that library. The sync's now completed. Now we're going to create a class for ViewModel. I'm going to do it in the main package name here where the main activity is. So select new, select Kotlin file class. We all need to select the class in there. And this, in regards to the ViewModel, all its variables are accessible across all the activities and fragments in your application, so you can keep the name quite generic if you want. You tend to only need one view model for your application, so I'm going to call it camera view model, give it a bit of a generic name there. Select OK. Okay, so we do need to inherit from the view model. And I'm pressing Alt Enter just to get the library for that. So in here, it's basically inside the class is where you want to set your values that you want to share between, in our example, the fragments. So I'm going to call this a value. It's going to be a variable actually, because it's going to change. It's going to be set every time we capture a video with the. So each video is going to have a unique file name. So what we'll call this video URI, and it's going to be of the type URI, and I'm going to make it support nullables, and I'm going to assign it a default value of null. Okay, and so that's all we need to do. We're only going to use this single value inside our ViewModel class to share across. Now I want to go into our preview fragment. And in here we have to create an instance of our view model first, so I will do that somewhere up the top here. So I'm going to create the instance first. This can just be a value because it's an instance of the view model, and I'll call this camera view model. And I'm going to initialize this when it first gets called with the lazy future delegate. So lazy there, And then it's a matter of, we need to call a library, the ViewModel library. So get hold of providers, and then we select our activity. And this will be the calling activity in this case for the activity that called the fragment. So we can call activity there. It does need to be a null safe value. And then it's a matter of get the actual ViewModel class itself, which is the camera ViewModel, and we will need to call it through the get hold of the Java name for that, for a reference call. Okay, so that's fine. We're now basically prepared an instance for our ViewModel, our camera ViewModel, and so we can now get hold of, we can now set the URI to that, and so we want to set that when we stop the record session. So I just do a search for stop record session. So I'm just going to do it at the bottom there. Okay, and so we'll call our camera ViewModel, and then we want to get the value inside the ViewModel, which is the video URI, and then we just want to pass in the URI of the captured video that we would have done previously. To get hold of that, we're just going to get URI from a file, and here's where we'll create a new file, and we can just pass in the current file path name there. Okay, so we've now successfully set the first or a URI value of the latest captured video. We've set that to the video URI in our ViewModel. I want to create a new fragment. This fragment is going to be used for video playback and a player such as Exoplayer, and that will be done in the following episode. But for here, I just want to prove that we can pass the URI pointing to the video captured in the preview session across to the new fragment, just proving that we are sharing data between Android fragments. So I'm going to create a new fragment, and first I just want to create a new layout file. So for that fragment, so I select, right click, new, and we'll use the layout resource file generation in Android Studio. I will drag this across so you can see what's going on here. So I will change this to a frame layout, and I will give it a name, and the name I just want to sort of give it some of the naming conventions here. Will be Fragment Exoplayer, and select OK. Right, now I just want to click the text tab there and just tidy this up slightly so we're used to looking at it like that. As it stands, I'm not going to make any other changes to it. In the following episode we will add an Exoplayer view to it, but not in this episode, so we're okay there. Right, now go down there and go into the camera2 fragments package, right click on that, select new, select Kotlin file class, and now select the kind of class, and for this we will call this Exoplayer fragment for the name, and select OK. Okay, and we're going to extend from the fragment class, and we want to use a support version for the app there, and I do need to call the constructor inside that. You do need to do that for fragments. Okay, so we've created our fragment. First thing I want to do is to inflate our fragment using the layout file we just created before, and I can just call on create view there. And I just do need to change the remainder of the super constructor code there. So change that there, keep the return in, and we'll call our inflator parameter inflate. And the resource is going to be the resource of the layout file there, which will be the, I can see the name there, fragment underscore. And you'll notice that I'm getting the hints, so I'm going to press Alt Enter for that so I can get the appropriate library and see if we can autocomplete there. So I'm going to select Fragment Exoplayer for that. So that's the first parameter. Second parameter, we can just pass in the container for the parent view group and select the false for the final there. Okay, so that's the inflation part of our fragment completed. I'm going to add a companion object here and set up a tag first, because we're going to use the debug value just to display the URI of the captured video in the preview session fragment. So we'll create a tag. Need to call value and call it tag, and it's just the same way as what we did before. So we need to call this fragment here and reference the generic file qualified name here. Okay, and I am going to create a new instance function call for the creation of this fragment. So we'll call the JVM static tag first, just to tell the compiler to generate this function call for us, and it will be a function, new instance, and here's where we actually call the exoplayer fragment, and make sure you call the constructor for that. Okay, so there's no warnings there. So this is the initial setup for our fragment. Now we'll create an instance of our view model here, just like we did in the preview fragment. So we'll just create we can make that private value, and again I'll just call this to represent the view model itself, so camera view model. And we'll use a lazy future for this, so it will get initialized when first called. And so we just call basically our view model providers of the activity. It has to be a safe call, a safe null call. And we can just call get, and it will be our camera view model. And we will need to reference the Java class name. Okay, and finally, I just want to show the when we go into this fragment, I just want to in this episode display the URI value of the captured video, and so I'll do that in the on activity created. And this is a good place to actually call anything. You're ensured that the activity is being created during the creation process for this fragment. Okay, so we can just call our I'm just going to log this tag as a debug value. Let's pass in the tag value, and inside here I can just put, what is it, video URI. And I'm going to use a string template for this, and so it'll be the camera view model video URI. Now we need to call this fragment from our preview fragment. So let's go into preview fragment, and I'm going to create a function here to replace this fragment with the exoplayer fragment, where eventually in the next episode we'll do video playback. And previously we replaced fragments from inside activities, but you can also replace fragment from inside another fragment, which is what we're going to do here. So I'm going to create a new fragment function, private function, I'll call it replace fragment. And it's going to take the parameter type name, and I'm just going to call it fragment. It's going to be a type of fragment, of course. And notice I'm going to use Android support v4. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit of space down there. Okay, so I'm going to create a value for the fragment transaction. To get a fragment transaction, we're going to actually need to do our calling activity, and it could be null, so we need to make a null safe call, and then call support fragment manager, again a null safe call, and begin transaction. From here we can call our fragment transaction, and again it's going to have to be a non-safe call, replace, and just like we did in activity, we're going to call ID fragment container. So I think when I'm referring back to what we've done before, it's back from the Android Fragment tutorial series. So if I reference that, I might be getting, because we haven't yet created any other fragments in this series, so apologies for that if I do confuse you. Anyway, so we do need to replace it. We've got the fragment container here that we set up in our main activity right at the start of the preview session, and then we can just pass in the fragment. And so that will replace our fragment. I want to do another fragment transaction call, and these fragment transactions calls have to be safe calls. And I'm just going to add it to the backstat. I'm going to set null for the name. And finally, we need to commit it to make sure it does happen. Okay, so the function's now in place. Even though we're in a fragment, we can now replace our current fragment with the exoplayer fragment. So finally, we're going to actually do that. So we're going to switch across to the other fragment when we click on the thumbnail icon on our application. And so basically, I need to create a fragment first of the exoplayer. So I'll just call this value exoplayer fragment. So I need to call the exoplayer class and then call new instance. Okay, so we've got the exoplayer fragment there, instance there, and it's just a matter of calling our replace fragment with the exoplayer fragment. Okay, and so when we run this, basically we're going to start up our new exoplayer fragment, and if we go back into that fragment there, notice that on the activity created, we've got a log tag here. So what we'd expect to do is after we've recorded a video, we just want to see what that video URI is. So we need to record a video, and then we save that URI to the ViewModel, variable. It's the URI variable inside the ViewModel, and then we're just going to basically, this ViewModel.URI is basically a getter. So it's a getter of the ViewModel to get that value. Anyway, so we will now run that and see if we actually do get the video URI being displayed in the exoplayer via the ViewModel. Application's now started. I'm just going to record a very quick video there. Stop. We can see our round thumbnails being displayed, and I'm just going to click on that. We've switched across to our exoplayer fragment. Nothing's happening, but what I want to highlight down here is this here. This is the debug output coming from the exoplayer fragment. If you look at there, it's displaying the URI of the current captured video, recorded video down there. So we've successfully used the ViewModel to share the video URI across to the exoplayer fragment. And that concludes this episode of using the ViewModel to share the URI of a captured video from one fragment to another fragment. And in this tutorial, we did have to create a new fragment. When we did that by hand, we created the fragment and its layout file to specify how the fragment does get inflated. And then we also had to set up a replacement fragment function from inside our preview fragment. So we're demonstrating how you can replace a fragment from inside another fragment. And finally, it's just a matter of using the setters and getters provided by our ViewModel class to set the URI in the preview fragment class once the video recording has completed. And then when we click the thumbnail on click listener, we're basically getting that URI value from the ViewModel, and we're just displaying it in the exoplayer fragment. Anyway, so that completes this episode. If you want to get notified of the videos that I publish to YouTube, don't forget to click on that subscribe button along with that little bell icon as well. And please note that you probably don't see me responding to technical questions on YouTube because I'm very busy and they just absorb too much of my time, video production time, and I just want to push content out to you guys. But I do provide a window for support, and that's paid support. So if you could pop across to Code Mentor, I do provide paid sessions to help you out with your problems or help teach you Android or Kotlin or Android programming. And do note, I do have social media accounts for Twitter and Facebook. The handle's just above there, and that's where I make all my public announcements, new videos, etc. Anyway, thank you for taking the time for watching this one. Bye for now.